Welcome to Procedural Indicators. This tutorial will show you how to create default indicators. To start, create an empty game object, then add the script arrow object. This will create the default mesh filter and mesh renderer. Arrow object script requires an arrow path object and optional arrow tail and arrow head endpoints. To create an arrow path, click the right mouse button, then create Zogabyte procedural indicators arrows arrow path. Similarly, you do this to create an arrow tip. Same arrow tip can be used both for arrow head and arrow tail. Drag and drop the arrow path object to the arrow object script, and also arrow tip to arrow head and arrow tail. Before pressing the play button, select the arrow path and change the path mode to extrude, because none will generate nothing. Also, select an arrow tip and change the endpoint mode to extrude. Press the play button and your arrow will be generated. As you can see, arrow tips are created at the both ends, the arrow tail and the arrow head. To make the arrow regenerate every few seconds, check the dynamic update option. To make it faster, drag the update speed all the way up. This will reflect any changes made to the arrow path object. For example, if we change the length of the arrow, it will reflect on the object itself. The permanent scriptable objects option will reflect any changes made to the arrow during the play sequence to the object itself. If this option is unchecked, a clone of the arrow path objects will be created, and any changes made to the arrow path objects in-game won't reflect to the arrow path object in the project. Flat shading option will change the way the arrow is generated. It will generate more vertices to create sharp edges. To create a selection indicator, create another empty object and add the selection indicator script. It works similarly to the arrow object script. It requires a selection indicator path object and path array object. To create a selection indicator object, press the right mouse button, create, Zogabyte, procedural indicators, selection, normal selection indicator path. To create a path array object, press the right mouse button, create, Zogabyte, procedural library, path arrays, circular path array. Change the level of detail a little bit higher. Drag and drop the normal selection indicator path object to the selection indicator path object. Add Zogabyte self-lit shader to the material. Press play and your selection will generate. Change the radius of the selection. You can always change the arrow tip endpoints. Use none or one of the provided objects from the templates, for example ComTip. This concludes our tutorial. Next tutorial will show you how to define paths for arrow indicators and selection indicators.